The Pentax 17 was a camera I didn't think I wanted until I went on this photo walk hosted by Peak Design here in San Francisco. And I met a few photographers, and quite a few of them actually had the camera. And so that was the first time I saw one in person, and I actually got to feel it in my hands. And you know what? It wasn't as bad as everyone had made it out to be in all of the reviews that I had been watching on YouTube. After talking to some of the photographers who had this, I really wanted one, and luckily the stars had aligned because Glass Key Photo, which is our local photography store, happened to have a box with them, and so impulsive buy-ish, I got one. And so of course the next day I went out to test drive the camera. I loaded it with Portra 400 because it is a film stock I'm very familiar with, and so I wanted to take out all the variables so that I would know what the photos were supposed to look like. So I drove down to Half Moon Bay to test it out. It was a cloudy day, but that was okay. It was just fun taking a drive down and shooting with a new camera. So here are some of the photos. So what do I think? So obviously the biggest difference between this camera and the other 35 millimeters is that it's a half frame, meaning you get 72 frames. And just having double the 35 is really freeing, actually. With a 35 or even a medium format, especially with a medium format camera, I am a little bit stressed out because I don't want to waste the film and I want to make sure I get the shots right. So I really take my time composing. But with this, I was like, holy cow, I have 72 frames to finish. And so there wasn't that pressure to get it perfect. And I think that's probably what made shooting with this camera a lot of fun. I was just shooting more casually and capturing moments rather than trying to create art. Then the next thing that was interesting about this was the zone focus. There are these icons at the top which tell you the different zones. It reminds me a bit of the icons on my Holga camera, which cost 35 bucks. And so that felt a little bit cheap to me, but it did have the measurements of the actual distances at the bottom. But you know, it's hard to see that. So I actually made a cheat sheet for myself to help me remember what each of the icons meant. I have a hard time remembering things. It was very helpful. It's a good cheat sheet. Feel free to copy me. And it didn't take that long to finally remember what each one meant. And honestly, it was fairly easy. And I think even if I got it wrong, I was still able to get things in focus. And out of the 72 shots, I only lost focus on 2 of them. So what does that tell you? Not bad, right? The other thing with this camera is I love how light it is. And so I think this will be a camera that will literally be in my pocket or in my bag. It's a total everyday carry camera, especially because you have 72 frames to go through. It's small enough that it can fit in your pocket, in your jacket pocket, not in your jeans pocket, and in a small bag, and it's light. So it's not like adding a lot of weight to whatever it is that you're carrying. The other thing I appreciate about this camera is that there are these different modes. I really appreciate actually, you know, a lot of the controls that this gives you. So this is not a point and shoot. This is a lot more advanced than a point and shoot, which I really appreciate, but it's also, you know, a lot more simpler than like, you know, a rangefinder like a Leica. But there are these different shooting modes, and I mostly shot in the P no flash mode, and there's all these tutorials on what these mean. But the one annoying thing about this is that it was too easy to accidentally change the modes. And so sometimes I would look down and see that it's in bokeh mode, and I'm like, wait, have I been shooting in bokeh mode this whole time? So I would always have to shift it back into P. So the most important thing, of course, is the photos. How good are they? So let's take a closer look at some of these photos. And looking at them, they are actually surprisingly sharp, especially for such a small lens and, a very light camera. I was very surprised how sharp the photos were, especially when I took photos close up. Those were really sharp. You could see a lot of the details in the flowers, for example. And actually, it's pretty fun shooting the close-up photos because you can get obviously pretty close up. This comes with a strap, and so the length of that strap is the distance that you can shoot from in close-up mode. And I actually measured it on this new strap that I put on, and it's about this far. And it's kind of nice, being able to get this close up to the subject and take a photo. So now, because it is a half frame, it is a little bit more grainy. So I shot with Portra 400, and for Portra 400, it is a little bit more grainy than what I'm used to seeing when I shoot Portra with 35 millimeter, for example. So what's the verdict? Am I gonna keep this camera? So I will happily donate my $500 to Pentax for the good of the film community. I will take one for the team. I'm just really happy that there are these new cameras being produced, and it's really encouraging to see, new development with something that had been kind of dead for a while. Also, I don't have a half frame camera, so that's one good reason to have it. And this is going to be my fun bring around with me camera and not take things too seriously. So it's gonna be really nice to have this. I would bring this around even more than I would my point and shoot, just because I have a little bit more control and then I get more photos out of it. In the next video, I'm gonna talk about a new film stock that I've used. We'll talk about how I shot it. What do I think of it? Is it something that I recommend for you to also try out?